Hello, let me share my screen. Okay, so we can start. So, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending your time zone. Welcome. Let me start by saying thank you. Thank you for taking the time to join my session and for giving me also the opportunity to share with you my knowledge and my passion. I truly appreciate your interest today. So today we are going to learn together about develop your LWC Lightning Web Component faster with the Lightning Data Service. And it will be my pleasure to take you through this session. I, I choose this topic because in Lightning Web Component there are several ways to work with Salesforce data. Knowing which solution to use for a specific use case lets you write less code, simpler code, and more mentionable code also. So, but before we start, let me talk about my favorite topic, me, myself, and I. So, my name is Houssam Saoudy, and I'm working at Capgemini, Morocco, as a Salesforce architect and a Salesforce technical lead. This means also I'm a senior developer with deep knowledge of the Salesforce ecosystem, and I write code and build also application. I'm a Salesforce MVP, the very first Salesforce MVP in Africa, which basically means I'm fully involved in Salesforce ecosystem and the Trailblazer community. And I share my knowledge with in three languages: Arabic, French, and English. And I have many Salesforce certifications, including Platform Developer 2 and System Architect and Application Architect. I'm also a North Africa Dreamin founder. So North Africa Dreamin, it's a conference, the only one in Africa, and it will be in person this year, and it's happened in Casablanca, Morocco, in 22 October this year. Also, I'm a speaker, and I speak in many developer groups around the world and user group, and happy with that. And let me say also thank you Salesforce and the Trailblazer community. Here I am with my Trailblazer community group in Morocco or globally doing things with passion. And this is my second year in a row that I've presented a topic in this conference, CenCal Dreamin. So I'm happy to be with my friends from California. So thank you so much. So today, this is the today's agenda. So we'll talk about LWC. What is LWC? Why we need to use LWC? After that, we will see how we can use LWC Lightning Web Component with the Apex. And also after that, I will show you how you can create a Lightning Web Component with Lightning Data Services. So, what are Lightning Web Components? Lightning Web Component is a new programming model for building Lightning components. It leverages the web standard breakthrough of the last 5 years. And Lightning Web Component can coexist and interoperate with the origin Aura programming model and delivers unparalleled performance. But it's time to bring together your Salesforce knowledge and your familiarity with standard technologies like HTML, JavaScript, and CSS to build the next generation of Salesforce applications. Use this command standard to build components for your Salesforce org while maintaining compatibility with existing Aura components. Also, Lightning Web Component is focused on both the developer and user experience because you have opened the door to existing technologies. So use the skill you have developed outside of Salesforce to build Lightning Web Component. All of this is available to you without giving up what you have already accomplished with Aura Component. So if you are a developer who working already with Aura Component, it will be also good to know how to write Lightning Web Components because it's the future. Okay, so why Lightning Web Components? So modern browsers are based on web standards, and evolving standards are constantly improving what browsers can present to a user. And Salesforce wants us to be able to take advantage of these innovations. And Lightning Web Components use a core web components standard and provides only what is necessary to perform well in browsers supported by Salesforce, because it's built on code that runs natively in browsers. And Lightning Web Component is lightweight and delivers exceptional performance. Most of the code you write is standard JavaScript and HTML. And it's not like web components are new. In fact, browsers have been creating this for years. For example, include select, video, input, and any tag that serves as more than a container. These elements are actually the equivalent of web components, and the goal is to bring that level of integration to Salesforce development. This is how you can write your first Lightning Web component. As you can see here, you need to Visual Studio Code. You need to install Visual Studio Code. After that, you create a project. After that, you go to create Lightning Web component. Um, so as you can see here, and you click here. When you click here, Visual Studio Code propose for you this, it will ask you for the desired directory. So just press enter. Press enter, that's it. After that, you need to give a name. So for example, in this example, it's hello world. So this is the name of my Lightning Web component. Now Lightning Web components are created. So let's see how to use Lightning Web Component. So as you see here, I have a project, and this is my project. And I have three files: hello world.html, hello world.js, and also hello world.js meta.xml. So it's very important to know that because if we compare Lightning Web Component to Aura Component, there are huge difference. So just note, in Lightning Web Component you need to know three files: .html, .js, and also .js meta .xml. Here's a very simple of Lightning Web component that display hello with some text. For example, here we need to start with template. After that, we use this palace. Lightning card title, and I give a title. After that, I can put an icon name, and after that, if I'm a HTML developer or a web developer generally, I know, for example, uh, some word like, for example, div, like p, that's mean a paragraph, and this is only HTML. And if you are already a HTML developer or JavaScript developer, you need to know, and you know already, to write those values. After that, we use a Lightning input label. We put the name, and we put greeting. as hello with some text, dynamic text. And this is our GS file. The Lightning Web Component programming model has three decorators that added functionality to a property or function. So decorators dynamically alter the functionality of property or function. And we have, for example, Arabesque track, as you see here. It's used to make variable private but reactive. Tracked properties are also called private reactive properties. We have also Arabesque wire. So Arabesque wire, it's here just to read. So with this functionality Arabesque wire, we can read the Salesforce data. Lightning Web Component also can use a reactive wire service. And we have also Arabesque API. So it's used to expose a variable or functions publicly and make properties reactive. So as you see here, this is a very normal line. So when you create Lightning Web Component, you generate automatically this line. The first line and also the second. After that, I use track greeting, and I put here a text, CenCal Dreamin word. And as I said, Arabesque track, it's used to make variable private but reactive. And tracked properties also called private reactive properties. After that, we use this word, and so change handle. This is a function. So if I go back, so this is on change. When I change my value, I call this method change handler. And when I call this function, I write and I put a new value on greeting properties. So the text will be a so-called Dreamin word. And this is my hello world JS meta.xml. Here I put when I want to show my Lightning Web component. So in this example, I want to my Lightning Web component be available on a record page, home page, or and the application page. So if, for example, I want to display only my Lightning Web component on a record page, I need to only to put this line, target Lightning record page. So it's, and also don't forget to use true in is exposed. So this is mandatory, and you need to add it true. If you forget to add the true, normally this value are false, but you need to add it true just to display and your Lightning Web components can be available on record page, home page, or up page. So when I finished developing my Lightning Web component, I can deploy my source. So in Visual Studio Code, I can click here. After that, I choose deploy source to org. So when I use this command, I can deploy my development and my Lightning Web component to a Salesforce org. So right now we just created the Lightning Web component, saying hello something, hello CenCal Dreamin word, but we didn't call Apex class. So Lightning Web component, we can call Apex method in Lightning Web Component also. So Lightning Web Component can import method from Apex classes into the JavaScript classes. Once after importing the Apex class method, you can able call the Apex method as functions into the component by calling either via the wire service or imperatively. The Apex method should be marked with arabesque Aura enabled. So this is mandatory. Before you use an Apex method, make sure that isn't an easier way to get the data. So here is an example how we can import and use a method. So here is a list of important points to import Apex method. So Apex method name. So is an imported symbol that identifies the Apex method, and Apex method references. It's the name of the Apex method to import. Class name is the name of the Apex class. Namespace is the namespace of the Salesforce organization. Specify a namespace unless the organization use the default namespace. It's C. In which case, don't specify it. So this is the first line to know. And this is my method on my Apex class. So this is a class account helper. After that, I use arabesque Aura enabled, catchable equal true. So you need to add this arabesque Aura enabled, this word. Why? Because we need to call our method on Lightning Web Components. And also, if you write Aura components, you need to use Aura enabled. But today we are talking about Lightning Web Components. And this is a method. So it's this method get account lists, return a list of accounts. And here it's just a SOQL query. And my SOQL query is select ID, name, type, rating, phone from account. So this method just display us all accounts we have in our database. And we can call the Apex class on Lightning component using this different ways. As I said, wire a property, wire a function, or call a method imperatively. We can invoke Apex method from a component via the wire service, and we can with arabesque wire property or a function. And here is a syntax. So I import Apex method. So I use this, we can say URL. After that, I use arabesque wire, and I put here Apex method, and also if I have some parameters, we can do it. And this is our account list Lightning Web Component GS. So it's same. And this is the account list LWC.html. So as we just talked before, when we have we want to create a Lightning Web component on the .html file, we need to start our file with template. So we use template. After that, we can use lightning card, and we can, for example, add some condition, as we can see here. For example, here this is my file, and I put a title on my lightning card, I can add icon name. This is just normal values you need to know as a developer, div, and I call a CSS file, and this is a method. I'm calling this method from our CSS file, just to design my page. After that, we can use some condition. For example, template if true. If I have a data, I need to do a for. So I can show all accounts if account that data it's not null, it's not false. So if I have data, I will show the ID and the name. After that, this is for each just to do for and show data, and I use ACC or ACK just to call the ID and the name. After that, if I have, for example, an error, I can show also the error with the account that errors. So this code will display only when I have an error, and this these codes template for each and ACC ID, ACC name will display only if I have data on my database. So what I explained. So let's recap. First things we are talking about Lightning Web Components. Why we need to start to write Lightning Web Components, and we wrote simple code with hello word CenCal Dreamin, just to show some text in our Lightning Web Component. After that, we deployed with SFDX our Lightning Web Component to our project. After that, we created Lightning Web Component, and we display all accounts I have in my database, and we used some decorator, as we saw with the Arabesque drag using Arabesque wire, um, and also with some condition template if true, just to display the data, and if I have an error, I put a condition if true account dot error. If I have an error, I show a message, error message. Okay, and let's see now. Let's see this page. And if we see this page, we can say, okay, it's a Lightning Web Component, and we can, let's imagine we have many components in this page. For example, this is the first component, and this is the second, and this is the third component. I know it's a standard, but let's imagine those components are Lightning Web components. So what happened? And when we wanted to write a Lightning Web component without Lightning Data Services, any component or any Lightning Web components can call Apex code. So we can create a lot of Lightning Web components, and each Lightning Web component can call Apex code. So it's normal, but maybe in this first Lightning Web component, we want to call a field, same field, and it's not good to do API call and talk to our database each time. So, and we have also another bad example. For example, we have three Lightning Web components, and each Lightning Web component call Apex code, Apex classes. Even if we want to display the same data, the same query, maybe we just want to add one field or two new fields. And this is very bad because we develop a lot of Apex classes. So when we develop Apex classes, we need to write also the Apex test um, classes just to deploy our code to production. And this is not good for, we need to save time. We need to maintain easily our code and our application. So if I want to recap what happened, this is an example. For example, we can use multiple SOQL call for the same data. We have the first component, we have the second component. We call Apex controller, and in each Apex controller we write SOQL query, and SOQL query talked with Salesforce. So let's see now what happens if we choose to work with Lightning Data Service. With Lightning Data Services, let's talk about Lightning Data Services before. So Lightning Data Services is the preferred and the easiest way to work with Salesforce data. With Lightning Data Services, developers use JavaScript to connect components to Salesforce data. Lightning Data Services also provides security by making server calls to secure user interface API endpoints. Using a client-side shared cache across all components, Lightning Data Services also maximizes performance. When a record is cached, it's retrieved from the cache, eliminating unnecessary calls for Salesforce. And Lightning Data Services, the data service, maintains consistent up-to-date data across multiple components and clients through the app lifecycle. So we can write many Lightning Web components. After that, we use Lightning Data Services. We talked with Lightning Data Services, and if we found information on the cache, our cache, Lightning Data Services don't send a query to Salesforce to show us the data now. Lightning Data Services can serve us and will give us the information. Let's see an example. Let's imagine we have three Lightning Web components, and in the first Lightning Web component, we have the first SOQL query. And the first SOQL query shows us the name, the phone, and also one custom field, my first custom field, for example. Our second Lightning Web component, we have want to show us the name, phone, and email. And our third Lightning Web component want to show us only the name and new field called my second custom field. So if we use and choose to work with Lightning Data Services, our SOQL query will be like that: name, comma, phone, comma, my first custom field, comma, email, comma, my second custom field. And we will send this query to Salesforce only one time. And for the second time, third time, we will give an answer only from our cache. And if we have, for example, for Lightning Web Component, we Lightning data service can also give us an answer using just the same SOQL query, and we, as you see here, uh, we didn't call Salesforce database. Why? Because we have already the response. And why? Because we choose it to work with Lightning data services. So if we want to recap, this is an example. So we have two components. So we can imagine those Lightning Web components or Aura components. It's the same thing. So we send a query to Lightning data services with a force record controller, and we have a shared record in our cache, and shared record cache can send a query and ask Salesforce server to give him the response only one time. But for example, if we need to call the same field and show the data, we can only give the answer from our cache. This is an example. What we are doing here, we just created a Lightning Web component called account creator. So it's the same thing. So as we saw just in the beginning of this session. So go to Visual Studio Code. You can create a new project or stay with the same project. After that, we can create your Lightning component using the command, uh, and that's it. After that, we need to start with the templates generated automatically with your Visual Studio Code. After that, with using Lightning record form in the markup, we get all of the security and performance benefits that Lightning Data Services provides. And when Lightning record form doesn't specify a record ID, it operates in edit mode and creates a record on submit. Uh, Also binding the object API name, as you can see here, indicate the kind of object to load, and binding the fields property indicate the fields to show in the form. So here we put our fields. And we set handle success as the handler of the success event. So if it's success and we don't have an error, we call handle success method. So here is our account creator GS. So as I said and I shared with you before, don't forget we have three main files that you need to know: the HTML, .js, and also meta XML file. So at the beginning of the file, we import references to the account object and its fields. Referencing object and fields in this way ensure referential integrity. And Salesforce verifies that the object and the fields exist and prevents them from being deleted, and ensures that they are included in change set and packages that reference the components. Importing object and field references ensures that your component code still works if the object or fields are renamed. Also, we define the handler success event handler for the success event. Handle success is executed when the save operation succeeded. Also, we show a toast message by firing show toast events in which event.detail.id is a reference to the ID property of the newly created records. So if you need more customization than the Lightning record tool from components provide, you can invoke Lightning Data Services directly by using a wire adapter or JavaScript function. Here is an example how we can read data with Lightning Data Services wire adapter. So Lightning Data Services wire adapter are another way to work with Salesforce data. So use a wire adapter to read Salesforce data records and the metadata, layout, details, fields on an object, and so on. So use them, decorate a property or a function with the arabesque wire and specify the wire adapter. Lightning data service wire adapters check the Lightning LDS catch first and request data from the server only as needed. Adapters react to change and refresh data accordingly. For example, when the parameter value changes or other components modify data in Lightning Data Services cache, an adapter provisions the new data to the wired property or function. And this is an example. Let's start to look. So we import the get record wire adapter. After that, like we did it in the account creator example, we import a reference to the account.name field. After that, when the wire get record property component is placed on a record page, arabesque API record ID lets the parent component to show. To wire the account property, we apply the arabesque wire decorator and specify the wire adapter to call get record and the parameters that the adapter needs. So this is an example how we can read data with Lightning Data Services wire adapter. Instead of decorating a property, we decorate also the where account function. So this is our GS file. So because Lightning Data Services wire adapters providing not a single value, but a stream of values with where account function can be invoked multiple times. As a result, a wired function must rest states that influences. This is our GS file. We call in the UI record API, and after that we call in a schema about our account and this field name field. After that, we used API decorator or decorator, and we put our logic. This is only a message to show on your console. We can use, for example, alert or anything if you want. And if the data return true, I can added value data equal data and without error. But if I have an error, I can show an error. We can also modify data with Lightning Data Services function. Instead of decorating a property, we decorate the wire account function. The function receives as a parameter an object that has two attributes, data and error. And because Lightning Data Services wire adapters provisions not a single value but a stream of values, the wire account function can be invoked multiple times. As a result, a wired function must reset states that it influences. So this is our code. So you can use it. You can take a screenshot. We calling LWC. We using UI record API. We using the schema of account. We are working with this field name, account name. After that, we have method record input. Here we put our value. We can also put here our fields. And if I have an error, I will show it. If not, my code can be executed, and I can create operation without problem and successfully. So this is just an example, and the main goal of this session is just to let you know that we can create record um, without using Apex class. We can modify data from Lightning Web Component just with Lightning Data Service without creating Apex code. And let's talk about the benefits of using Lightning Data Services. So, no need to write Apex code or SOQL query. We can also support most standard and all custom objects. We reduce server load, database load, and network transfer by fetching data once. We can share cache data across components. We can support field device security and sharing rules. So no need to worry about data security and visibility. And this is a good to know. And it's one of the most advantage. And we can support CRUD operations. CRUD mean create, read, update, delete records. And we support offline in Salesforce One, and we can use it in Aura component as well as Lightning Web component. But you know, even if we have a lot of benefit, we have also some limitations. And let's talk about limitations. So not all objects support Lightning Data Service. So you can check for supported standard object here. So I put here the link. You can read it when you have time. And we cannot use it for Visual Force pages. So if we have Lightning Visual Force pages, we can't work with the Lightning Data Service, and no bulk support. So, and this is only the limitation that I found, but we have a lot of benefits and advantage. I put here some resources. So for all new developer or experienced developer, if we are an experienced Aura component or Aura component developer and you don't have much knowledge how to create your first Lightning Web component, in Trailhead we have a lot of models that you can do it and you can discover them. But I choose to put here a very good model, quick start Lightning Web components, and I recommend you to start to build your first Lightning Web component. And I put the second model, Lightning Web components and Salesforce data. So, and in this model, you can read and see how you can use Lightning Data Service with your or a component, or maybe if you want to work with Apex class. But today we are talking about Lightning data service. So um, thank you so much. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate your listening, and I'm very happy to receive you have my LinkedIn account or my Twitter account. You can send me if you have any questions, and let's say thank you and enjoy your time. So thank you very much.